We are ready to start the last chapter, chapter 10. The title of this section is Exponents and Polynomials, and 10.1 is Multiplication with Exponents for Pre-Algebra. And what we're going to do first of all is just remind you what an exponent is. So if we have a number, and that's called the base, and we're going to put an exponent on there, and in this case it's just a small number in the upper right hand side of the base number. That's called the exponent, and what that is just a shortcut for writing 4 times 4 times 4. This number tells you that you're multiplying this number by itself that many times. Several of you over the course of the semester or the course of this chapter may end up writing this accidentally without thinking as 4 times 3. It's a real common mistake to make, but it will give you the wrong answer, so really try to focus on what you're doing there. Now example 1 gives you 4 cubed, and that means 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is 64. So that's what you get as an answer, is 64 when you have 4 cubed. When you have a number such as negative 3 to the 4th, that means 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, 4 times, and at the end we put our negative back on the answer. When we have a number that is in parentheses with a 4, that means everything in the parentheses is multiplied. So it's negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. And if you're multiplying an even number of negatives, your answer will always be positive. If we were to take away one of these negatives, we'd have an odd number of negatives, which means your answer would always be positive. So when you're multiplying negative numbers, if there's an even number of them, you're going to get a positive answer. If there's an odd number of them, you're going to get a negative answer. But this is one of the key screw-ups of students, is not remembering the fact that this is 3 to the 4th with a negative sign on it, and this is negative 3 to the 4th, which means you multiply the negatives. So don't forget to do that. And then when you have a number like in this first example, 3/4, and they're putting a parenthesis on it and they're squaring it, that is negative 3/4 times negative 3/4. And again, the negative is inside the sign, so we're going to multiply it by that. Let's make that negative a little bit more obvious here. Alright, so what you do when you multiply is it shows me a fraction that's squared, which means the top and bottom numbers are both squared. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9, and then 4 times 4 is 16. And it doesn't matter if you put this negative on the 3 or on the 4, or you have it out front and it's on neither the 3 or the 4. You've got an even number, so that means your answer is going to be positive. So it really doesn't matter where that negative goes when you multiply those. So the property for exponents. When you are multiplying exponents, and I'm just going to show you the property. I'm not going to go over the theory of why it's true or anything, but if you have a number like 3 squared and you're multiplying it by 3 to the 5th, that is the same as 3 to the 2 plus 5, which is 3 to the 7th power. So all you do is you add these, but the key part of this is these bases have to be the same. If this were a 3 and it was squared and it was a 4 to the 5th power, we could not add those because our base numbers are not the same. So it only works when we have base numbers that are the same. So for instance, x squared times x cubed would be x to the 5th. Bases are the same. We add the exponents together and just tag that on the answer. And you can look at example 2 and follow what they did there. All they're doing is adding the exponents. The next property that we're going to look at, the book calls it the property number 2 for exponents, but it's actually called the power rule. And what it says is that when we have an exponent in a parenthesis with another exponent outside of it, which what I tell students usually is when you have two exponents close to each other like that. Like if we had 4 squared plus, or 4 squared times 4 cubed, that is going to be the same as 2 plus 3 as my exponents. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on between those two, so we add them. But right here, there is nothing going on here. And usually when we have two numbers separated by a parenthesis like that, that means we multiply. Well, it's the same case here. When they're right there close to each other and there's no sign between them, like there is here, there's no sign there, so we multiply those. And I don't know, I'm just trying to give you some easy ways to remember how to do this. So you end up getting 4 then to the 5 times 6, or 4 to the 30th power. Now if we have an x, we have x squared, and we cube that. That means x to the 2 times 3, which is x to the 6th power. Now the theory behind that isn't really too bad. What we've got is, get rid of some of my stuff here. Let's say we have 2 cubed, and we're going to take that to the 4th power. And that is 2 to the 12th power. Because this 2 to the 3rd is 2 times 2 times 2, and it says we're going to do that 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and if you count all of my 2's, there are 12 there. So it's actually 2 to the 12th power. So not too hard to understand where that comes from. Another property, they call it property 3. And what that is if we have a number like, let's just do 3x, and we put a squared there. What that means is that squared is on the 3 and the x. 3 times 3 is 9. X times x is just, I mean, we can't do anything with it. We don't know what x is, so it stays x squared. And that's really all there is to that one. So if you look at example 4, let's look at B. For some reason they give the harder one first. Well, this is kind of tricky too, isn't it? Okay, so we've got that. So we're going to look at this first, -3, and we're going to cube that. And you notice that our -3 is inside the parenthesis, so we'll leave it inside the parenthesis like that. And then we take our x to the 4th, and we cube it. So what we did is we distributed this 3 to everything inside of here. And we're going to do the same thing with this x here. X squared, we'll just leave it like that for right now. So this is going to be -3 cubed. This is going to be x to the 12th. And this is going to be x to the 10th. Alright, so now we keep going. -3 times -3 times -3. We have 3 negatives, so that's odd, so we know our answer is going to be negative. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. We have x to the 12th and x to the 10th. Our bases are the same. So what we said from our first property was that if we're multiplying, like x squared times x cubed, it's the same as x to the 2 plus 3 or x to the 5. This is going to be x to the 12 plus 10, which is 22. So we get -27x to the 22nd power there. Alright, so let's keep going here. Let's look at one like D in example 4. 2x squared y to the 5th, and then we'll cube that. And then we've got 3x to the 4th, y, and we'll square that. So what we're going to do is we're going to distribute this 3 times each of these, the 2, the x, and the y, and then this 2 on the 3, the x, and the y. So let's do that. 2 cubed x, and you get to where you do this in your head. X squared cubed is 2 times 3. I'm just going to write it like that. And y is going to be 5 times 3. Alright, and then we're going to look at this one right here. 3 times 3, so we get 3 squared, x to the 4 times 2, and y, there's a 1 there, so it's 1 times 2, or just 2. So let's look at this. 2 cubed is 8, x to the 2 times 3 is 6, y to the 5 times 3 is 15. And let's just kind of separate it from this one here. 3 times 3 is 9, x to the 8th, y squared. Now we're going to multiply these. So 9 times 8 is 72. X to the 6th, x to the 8th is 6 plus 8 is 14. Y to the 15 times y squared is going to give me y to the 17. And that is my answer.